Greetings, mortals. I am Cassandra, Amazonian warrior. I come from Amazonia, a land of proud and strong warrior goddesses, just like me. And as a warrior goddess, I have seen many thrilling battles, brave exploits, and countless adventures of which the bards will sing for generations to come. But of all my legendary trials, there is one in particular I am eager to share with you tonight. It is the story of perhaps my hardest battle. A caller? At this hour? Hoy! Who goes there? What is this? This is my roommate, Britney. I met Britney when I first arrived into town. She had a spare bedchamber in this centrally located 2-bed, 2-bath dwelling. I just moved in last week. Where was I? Yes, I have quite the tale to regale you with. Come, huddle closer. The warmth of the fire beckons. Lo, that is too close. Back away. More. That'll do. My story begins as a young lass growing up in Amazonia. I had always trained hard, for when all Amazonians become of age, they are to become proper warriors. Blessed with super strength, we make up the fierce army that protects glorious Amazonia from hostile invaders and enemies. One night, I had a vision. You see, my mother was a prophetess, and I seemed to have briefly glimpsed her powers of premonition when I came of age. In my vision, I saw a far and distant land beyond the North Star, where no Amazonian had ever gone before. Legend has it that in that place, there is fighting, but not always, for there is also something there called peace, a word with which I was unfamiliar. So I searched the old scrolls, studying the wisdom of the scribes, and I discovered its meaning, the absence of war. I was baffled. In Amazonia, we only know war. For as long as we can remember, we have been a warrior tribe, always preparing for the next battle. So you see, Amazonians only know how to fight. Without constant battle, what would people spend their time doing? I wondered. Then I thought, perhaps the answer lies in this world from my vision. My curiosity captured me. I decided that I must venture out in search of this mythical land, in search of these so-called peaceful people. Everything was so foreign and alien to me. I had never seen so many shops and taverns in my life, many of which seemed to offer the same goods. Apparently, your people are obsessed with something called coffee and Wi-Fi. What manner of beast is this? You again. Where I am from, there is an old saying. Greeted once by an unfamiliar face, you may be looking upon a new friend. Greeted twice by an unfamiliar face, you may be looking upon a spy. Who sent you? Amazonia? You appear to have weak triceps. Clearly you are not from Amazonia. Off with you. I find this to be a strange and lonely place. And although I live with Britney, we do not engage in merriment often, as she is always preoccupied with her vocation as an influencer, whatever that is. I assume it means she wields a power of influence, like a witch doctor. One morning, I told Britney how I felt. I had nothing in common with anyone else here. I missed home, and I yearned to be with someone who understood me. Britney tried to lift my spirits by suggesting something called dating. I asked her what that meant, and she told me it was, like, going out and stuff. As usual, I did not understand. She explained to me how one uses dating apps to meet local suitors. When I first learned of this, frankly, it seemed impersonal and barbaric. But I was never one to back down from a challenge. Britney was generous enough to lend me her garments and attempted to teach me how to conform to the dress and manner of common folk. She helped me create a dating profile on which I listed some of my interests, which include fresh protein, iron weaponry, and rising at daybreak to beat the drums of war. Salutations, mortal. I am Cassandra, proud warrior goddess. Greg was quite pleasant from the beginning. What a thoughtful gesture. How did he know I enjoyed a pre-supper snack? The plan was to dine together. Greg would take me to his favorite tavern. As we walked, he asked me where I was from, and I asked him the same. Greg seemed quite excited when he learned that I was from Amazonia. He was a lover of tall tales and something called comic books. He told me I was like a superhero. Superheroes are myths for children. I am real. At supper, Greg asked strange customs about which meets one with their hands, of a warrior goddess, since I left and that I had traveled from far away to discover new wonders. Greg explained to me being homesick. He told me about realized that I had been made here. Specialist. He was saving money to start his own IT where he is from. I understood none of this. When in Rome, it seemed to excite him. He then asked, as this was, what excites you? I felt and besides, many things in the face of new adventures. Decided that I should in this successful hunt. That thrill of victory, finding a reasonably priced with your hands. I was enjoying our date thus far, for more was getting quite hungry. Greg's meager bouquet of wild vegetation was not at all filling. Sensational! More! When we sat down to break bread, I was doing everything wrong. Greg showed me the way people here were expected to eat with these tiny tools. I wondered why one needed tools to eat. Greg said it was just how things were done around here. But then I noticed a man across the banquet hall eating with his hands. Why could I not do that? Greg explained that this was because he was eating something called a sandwich. I asked Greg what a sandwich was exactly, and he told me it is a dish in which the meat comes in between two pieces of bread, even though meat must generally be eaten with a fork and knife. I found this all very confusing. I feared I would never be able to understand your people. I tried my best that night to dress the way you dress and eat the way you eat, even though it was all different for me. But I will say, this little thing called a knife was nice and sharp, which reminded me of the very first gladius I trained with as a toddler. Why, it's like a tiny sword. With full bellies, we approached my dwelling. I found myself wishing to extend our time together. So I invited Greg in to show him my sword collection. I asked if he wanted to spar with me. I selected my bow staff made from solid oak, and I offered him my trusty broadsword. I never lend this to anyone, which is when I realized that I fancied him. Greg did not want to accept my challenge. Truthfully, I would have been just as happy not to duel with him at all that night. I simply wished to continue enjoying his company, but alas, it seemed he did not feel the same. Perhaps Greg and I were too different. As he gazed upon my armory, I saw a look of bewilderment in his eyes. I could not tell if this was a look of admiration or fear. I told Greg that I was homesick, and as strange as it may sound, my sword collection helped me to feel as if I was at home in Amazonia. Surprisingly, he understood, and he admitted to me that he sometimes felt homesick as well. Although we were from vastly different homelands, I from Amazonia, he from Pittsburgh, at the very least he and I had this in common. We were both far from home. He told me he wanted to see me again and bid me good night. The next morning, Britney wanted to hear tales of my courtship with Greg the night before, and so I proceeded to recount the events of my evening with Greg. Britney demanded every detail, and I obliged. I couldn't help but notice Britney was eating pork belly with her hands. Must you not use a fork and knife for that meat? These strange eating customs were vexing me even further. A fortnight later, Greg picked me up for our second courtship. I was surprised to find him in the drapings and armor of a warrior, like me. He told me he thought of the perfect place to take me, a place called Ren Fair. Of course, I had not a clue where that was. I had never seen anything like it. Everyone was dressed in ancient garments, partaking in traditional customs and simple old-fashioned merriment. Huzzah! Greg graciously presented me with a roasted turkey leg. How romantic. I stood there, searching for eating tools, but there were no forks or knives in sight. Were we to eat with our hands at the risk of appearing like boorish savages? Sensational! We spent the afternoon engaging in more merriment. We indulged in more roasted meats and various games of skill and chats. Of course, my preferred game was a strength challenge. You know, I actually am a dragon slayer. Yes, I have vanquished many a fire-breathing behemoth. There was even a blacksmith on grounds. This pleased me greatly, as I very much enjoy handling new weapons. We then partook in my favorite activity of all, battle! When I rode atop that magnificent steed while brandishing that solid iron mace, I felt truly at home. It was a most memorable day, and I very much enjoyed Greg's company. I told Greg I had never felt this way before. It felt like a tingling inside, a rather good feeling. I tried to explain the sensation to Greg. The only thing I could compare it to is a feeling I've sometimes experienced during battle. You know, the feeling you get when you are the first to seize high ground to win a tactical advantage against the enemy. What a rush! To me, this was a strange new land, with strange clothing, strange customs, indecipherable rules about which meats one can and cannot eat with their hands. But now, for the first time since I left home, I did not feel alone, and it was all thanks to Greg. How did he do this? Greg explained to me that after I told him about being homesick, he did a lot of thinking. He realized that I had been making such an effort to fit in here, and so he thought the least he could do was spend some time as an Amazonian. And then he told me that where he is from, there is an old saying, "When in Rome, do as the Romans do." As strange a land as this was, I was beginning to like this place. I felt I had much to learn here. And besides, I was never one to cower in the face of new adventure. And so I decided that I shall stay here longer in this centrally located 2-bed, 2-bath dwelling. Have you ever experienced a new culture? Do you eat meat with your hands? Regale us in the comments, and do not forget to like and subscribe for more hidden wisdom stories. And go forth, my dear mortals! Carry on my legend to audiences far and wide. For when you share our stories, you are sharing wisdom.